Hi all, this is Dr. Sage Breslin, and this is Wisdom Wednesdays. For many of you, appearing on Thoughtful Thursday, 24 hours late due to a series of very challenging events in the last 24 hours. So I'm glad you're here with me, whether it's Wednesday or Thursday, or whenever you may be viewing this. And yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about some wisdom that came through for me during a really difficult process. I've been a trauma therapist for over 30 years now, and as a psychologist, I feel like my training and my experience and the many, many years worth of therapy that I've had, my education, all of those things really have enabled me to, move through the process. If I have a tough session, I take a little time to myself. I process what has occurred. I dot my I's, cross my T's, and I move on to the next client because that person needs me too. And yesterday, I noticed some pretty big events that occurred. And not only was I concerned for myself and my client, but I was also concerned for my intern. And so there was a lot going on during the time I would normally be filming and posting Wisdom Wednesdays. And, as I made it through that process and through sort of putting life back together, I noticed that I still wasn't quite clean from the experience. I still took some time to do some self-care, and I love whenever I come across something where I feel like helpless or out of control, I do things that help me feel in control. So I was just clearing some accounts and reached out to an account that should have been closed a couple of years ago, and that thing went around the planet and reverberated and went sideways. And I realized that I had, yet another experience of feeling kind of beaten up. And so I delayed and delayed to film this so that I could get on the other side of it, so that I could tap in and I could access the wisdom that was coming through it. So I am today going to speak actually to those of you who are in startups, because I think it is maybe more relevant to this crowd than to the general population of professionals. Not that this won't be useful for all of you, but in startups, there's an amazing commitment that we invest in. Usually a relatively small group of people, many of whom often know each other, many of whom are friends or colleagues through time. And there's the investment in hope for something better, in the hope for an opportunity to bring a product to market or a service to market. There can be a lot of excitement. There can be fear, but the commitment is amazing. And I have seen that as I have consulted with startups over and over and over again. But oftentimes when I'm brought in for consultation, it's because the startup and the people in the startup have gone wonky. So this was what I was reminded of actually as I was walking the dog this morning, kind of trying to walk off my day yesterday and walk off my morning, and really just kind of get right with myself, get grounded. I'm on the floor again today because I'm hungry for more grounding. So as I was getting grounded, I was trying to unpack my own thoughts and feelings and trying to make sense of them. And as I did that, as I noticed the feelings that I had, I was reminded of several startups in which I had done some consulting and recognized those same kinds of feelings. And it caused me to really take a peek at all of that for myself. And what I noticed was this, that when we invest a huge amount of commitment, whether it's in a relationship with a loved one, whether it's a relationship with a friend or a colleague, or even a client, we envision that that commitment is going to afford us safety, security, nurture, respect, even recognition, appreciation. And what I noticed in my experience over the last 24 hours is that in these situations where I'd overcommitted, actually, I'd over invested. That was probably the dead giveaway, but in which I'd really committed a lot. And I recognized myself feeling betrayed, unappreciated, unrecognized. And initially, I think it caused me to feel angry and frustrated. And eventually, I moved through hurt and disappointment, and I landed with sadness. And, you might ask, well, why sadness? I think sadness because I recognize that my investment of so much time and energy hadn't been enough. And honestly, I might even be a miracle worker from time to time, but it's not up to me. If somebody wants to make a change in their life, they've got to make the change. I could invest my entire being and that wouldn't make a difference if the person didn't want to make those changes or transformations. So you say, what does this have to do with startups? Well, I was thinking about how oftentimes in startups, when a colleague chooses to exit the startup and move on to another venture, those that are left behind can feel betrayed. They can feel left. It can feel like the breakup of a relationship, because it is, a collegial one, but it's a breakup. And what we go through are stages of grief, much like if we were breaking up with a loved one. That betrayal, that rejection, that abandonment, anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, all of those things can come up and do. And that's what I noticed in the last couple of consultations, were when original members of the startup team decided to move on to other ventures, or even just decided to get out if they were investors, that the remainder of the team felt betrayed, felt angry, felt as if they were being left behind, or that their needs and the needs of the company were not being placed first, not prioritized. And so as I started to recognize those familiar feelings, I was surprised how much it helped me to really unpack my own stuff over the last 24 hours and to own what was happening for me, own the grief, and to allow myself just to roll through it and to really accept it as a process. So the wisdom for the day is, number one, give yourself time. If you go through a really, rough stage, day, hour, take a step back. Get your comfort food, wear comfy clothing, sit on the ground if you need to feel more grounded, go for a walk, take a step away from the situation, get some consultation, really examine what's coming up for you. Is it what's happening right there in the present moment? Or is it attached to something more, something that is going on below the surface, maybe something that's happened to you like this before? That's what I noticed, by the way. It triggered my old issues. So The next time you get in a situation, especially those of you in startups, and you notice yourself having big feelings about members who maybe are talking about not remaining with the startup, members who leave, check yourself. Check any sense of betrayal. Check your frustration and see if there's a way to simply see through and see the light in this situation. See why this can become a gift for you. Recognize the ways in which it serves you to no longer have that person as part of your team. If your team, those of you who want to be together, is trying to move forward, recognize that it has value to that other person to move beyond the team. And that sometimes that needs to take precedence. Look at what it has triggered in you, whether below the surface or above the surface in the present moment. And if you need consultation, please don't hesitate to DM me or give me a call at 858-481-8810. This is Dr. Sage Breslin, and this is all about seeing the light in all situations. This is Wisdom Wednesdays, airing today on Thoughtful Thursday.